everybody. Welcome to Life Science Live again. Thanks as always for tuning in and joining, and super excited to have you here today. We're going to learn about how different animals lay their eggs and the kind of nesting habits that they use. So as usual, if you have any questions or any comments or anything that you want to say throughout this video, either if you're watching it live or if you're watching it later, we can go back and try and answer your questions. Feel free to go ahead and comment them and we'll try and answer them as best we can. So, like I said, we will be talking about eggs and egg-laying animals and the way that they make their nests for their babies today. So as I was talking about eggs, maybe you were thinking about some animals that lay eggs. So think to yourself for just a second maybe, what are some animals that lay eggs? All right, you might have been thinking about birds. I've got lots of birds on this wall behind me. That's a right answer. There are also animals like turtles, or snakes, or lizards, or fish, or frogs, or any other of those animals. Those are also correct answers because they all lay eggs. So when an animal has a baby, it has two options for how to get the baby outside of itself. It can either give a live birth, which is what we humans do and what mammals do, or they can lay eggs. And animals that lay eggs are called oviparous animals. So it's kind of a big word, but oviparous just means an egg-laying animal. So eggs and nests come in all different sizes and shapes and colors and ways that they take care of their babies. So let's talk about some of these oviparous animals and how they take care of their babies and how they lay their eggs. So the first thing I want to show you guys today is an ostrich egg. This is the largest egg of any of the birds. So ostriches are the biggest birds and they lay the biggest eggs. But actually, in comparison of size, the egg to size ratio, the egg is actually one of the smallest of the bird eggs. Because the ostriches are so big, they lay such small eggs in comparison to their body size. But it still is the biggest egg. Ostrich eggs can weigh up to 3 pounds, which is so heavy and so big. And one cool thing is that ostriches can tell their eggs apart from other ostrich eggs. So if we were to come across a nest full of ostrich eggs, we would think that they all looked the exact same. But ostrich mothers can tell which eggs are which. They can differentiate them, which is super cool. And this is really important because ostriches use community nests. So what they'll do is they'll have a group of parents and the moms will lay their eggs in a nest, all the moms will, and then together as a group they'll protect the nest from predators. That way the nest has better chances of survival. They work together as a team, so it's not just the mom and the dad against all the predators. It's lots and lots of parents. And it helps protect the nest and protect the babies. So that's another good reason that the parents can tell their eggs apart from the other eggs, because they have to be able to find their eggs in the mixture of all the parents. So that is how an ostrich nest works. And these ostrich eggs are super big. And one cool thing about ostrich eggs is they've been used by humans throughout history for lots of different things. They found ostrich eggs in ancient civilizations as early as 1000 BC. These eggs were used as cups and as bowls, and they were often painted with really pretty colors and cool geometric designs. They were decorated. So ostrich eggs are super cool. And even today, they're eaten by some people as a delicacy. So ostrich eggs, they're so big and they're so useful to humans. So that is the world's largest bird egg. So now that we've talked about the largest bird egg, let's talk about the smallest bird. So this here is a hummingbird. And it is so small in comparison to the ostrich egg. Here, I'll pull it out so you can compare it. So there's the ostrich egg, and here is the tiny little hummingbird, which is crazy. And if you think about how big an ostrich is, ostriches are much larger than their eggs that they hatch out of. So the size difference in the birds is super crazy. Let's look at the size of the nest of the hummingbird. So this is a hummingbird nest right here. You can kind of see it. Let me put the hummingbird down real quick. So hummingbird eggs are very small. They can be as small as a pea and they get as large as a really small jelly bean, which is very tiny compared to that big ostrich egg that we just saw. So it has to fit in that little cavity right there. When baby hummingbirds hatch out of their eggs, they weigh about the third of the weight of a dime. So if you picture how small a dime is and how much it weighs, it's not very heavy, it's very light. And a little baby hummingbird weighs 1/3 of that when they first hatch out, so they're so tiny. Little baby hummingbirds have little hooks on the end of their bills when they first hatch out, and that helps them to break through the eggshell as they're escaping from the egg. And then that disappears shortly after they are born, when they get outside of the egg. So let's look again at this nest. You'll see it might look, it's kind of hard to to tell on the camera, but it's a little bit different from other nests that you might have seen around in the fact that it's kind of spongy. The sides of the walls are very soft. Unlike a lot of nests that are held together with mud and they have sticks and that sort of thing in there. Hummingbirds build their nests out of slightly different materials than many other birds will use. They will use super soft things like moss or lichen, or dandelion fluff and cotton, and spider silk, and then they also have little bark and leaf fragments. So that makes the nest super spongy. So when the birds are born, you can see it's not a very big cavity inside the nest there. And so when the birds hatch out, they're very, very small, but then eventually, after about 2 weeks, they're to the size that they can fly out on their own. And so if there's multiple babies in the nest, they wouldn't fit very well once they get a little bit bigger after they've hatched. So the nest is spongy, and so it expands as the birds grow. So that's super cool. That's one reason that the nests are kind of flexible. And they're held together by spider thread a lot of the times, and so that helps keep it together so that they don't fall apart, even outside of there. All right, so we've talked about how birds' nests come in all different sizes and the eggs are all different sizes. But we also know that eggs can be lots of different colors. If you've had chicken eggs before, which you probably have, that's the kind you have with your scrambled eggs for breakfast, they're usually either white or brown. But eggs can come in all sorts of colors, so we're going to talk about some of these different colors that eggs can come in. All right, so right here we have, this is a ring-necked pheasant. It's a very pretty bird. And this is a ring-necked pheasant egg. You'll see the color is a brown, kind of neutral color. It blends in really well. And the reason that these birds have really neutral colored eggs is because they nest on the ground. They usually try and nest somewhere where there's dense foliage or there's dirt that they can kind of hide their eggs in and bury it in. And since the nests are on the ground, they're easily accessed by predators. Predators can reach it very easily, and so their eggs are kind of a neutral color, kind of a brown color, so that they will blend in with the dirt and with the plant that they're laid in. So a lot of birds that have super easily accessible nests will have neutral colored eggs so that they are kind of camouflaged. That helps to protect them a little bit. But not all birds have neutral colored eggs. There are some that have super bright colors. So I have right here, this is the kind of nest that a robin bird would have. And so unfortunately I don't have any robin's eggs with me, so you'll just have to take my word for it that robin bird eggs are very, very bright. They're super bright blue. And the nest you'll see is pretty camouflaged. It's kind of hard to spot. It's neutral colors, it's made out of plants. If this is up in a tree, it's not always very easy to spot. And so because the nest is camouflaged itself, it's not as important that the eggs are camouflaged. So they're really bright colors, because they're able to kind of hide inside the little cavity there, and the walls hide it from predators. And also robins will lay their eggs often in trees super high up, so they're not very easily accessible by predators. So the camouflage of the eggs themselves isn't necessarily as important as it is for the pheasant, where their eggs are on the ground, where lots of different animals can reach it that would want to eat them. So that is the bird's nest. And so there are lots of reasons that having bright colored eggs are important, so we'll kind of talk about that. One of the reasons is that it helps to differentiate the bird's eggs from other kinds of bird's eggs. So I'll kind of explain what happens a lot of times in the wild. So let's say, let me pull this back out, that there's a robin bird, and the robin bird will lay her bright blue eggs inside of her nest. And then she goes for a little while, and then there's another type of bird called a cuckoo bird. And cuckoo birds will go lay their eggs in other birds' nests because they're kind of lazy. They don't want to build their own nest. They don't want to take care of their babies. So what they do is they go find nests that are already built, and then they lay their eggs in the already built nest, and they just hope that the mother bird will take care of their eggs so that they don't have to. So let's say we have a few bright blue eggs, and then a cuckoo bird comes along and it lays its white egg inside of the nest. When the robin bird comes back, it can recognize that the white egg is much different than the bright blue eggs. So it will get rid of the white egg, so it doesn't have to take care of somebody else's baby. And so having brightly colored eggs with different patterns and different colors helps parents to differentiate their eggs from the other eggs in the nest, and then also other kinds of bird eggs that are trying to be parasites on them. So that is one reason they have brightly colored eggs. All right, and at the very beginning of this, we talked about how there are lots of different kinds of animals that lay eggs, not just birds. So we're going to talk about lizards. So right here, this is a green iguana. And these are green iguana eggs. They're in this water because it helps to preserve them. So this green iguana here is an egg layer, and they're much different than birds. They can't fly, so their nests are on the ground. They will bury their eggs in the sand. They'll dig sort of a burrow, kind of like a little house for their eggs to go into. They'll go lay the eggs, and then they'll bury them, leaving an air pocket. They have to leave some sort of air because eggs are porous, so they still need to be able to kind of breathe so oxygen can diffuse in and out of the eggs. So they bury their eggs with an air pocket of air so that they can breathe. And the reason that they bury their eggs is to keep them cool, which is a little bit different than birds. Birds will sit on their nests to keep their eggs warm and to regulate the temperature. But the lizards will bury their eggs to keep them cool. Especially the green iguana here is found in the Sonoran Desert, which is very, very hot. And so they have to be able to keep their eggs from drying out or dehydrating. So they bury them to keep them safe. So that is a green iguana there. All right, so we talked about lizards as a type of animal that lay eggs. And there's also another kind of animal that we mentioned, and that was a turtle. So let me pull out a turtle here. All right, this is a hawksbill sea turtle. And a lot of you watching might have brothers and sisters. You might have 2 or 3, or some of you, if you come in a really large family, you might have 7 or 8. But I'll bet that none of you have 130 brothers and sisters. That's a lot, but that's how many brothers and sisters you might have if you were a sea turtle, because a hawksbill sea turtle can lay 130 to 160 eggs in a single batch, which is so many eggs. A sea turtle, kind of like the lizard we just talked about, will bury its eggs in the sand to help protect it and to help keep it cool. And one cool thing about hawksbill sea turtles is they will return to the same beach that they were hatched from to lay their eggs. So they come back to the beach, they come in the nighttime to lay their eggs because they're kind of able to remain safe under the darkness, kind of acts as a protector for them. So they come during the night when the predators aren't out for the most part, and they lay their eggs in the sand, and then they go back to the ocean and they just leave the eggs to fend for themselves at that point. So the eggs are buried, kind of like the iguanas, to protect them again. And then the babies hatch out, and they hatch out at night too for the same reason. It helps to protect them and help keep them safe from predators. And the babies hatch out, and then they go to the ocean and they live their life. And then they come back to that very same beach to lay their eggs. And so it seems crazy that 130 to 160 sea turtles are in a single batch. And for the most part, most of them don't survive. But the fact that there are so many eggs in a single batch helps to increase the chances of at least a few of them surviving. And a lot of different animals will use that methods. That is especially seen in creatures like in insects. They will lay hundreds and hundreds of eggs at the same time because they know that probably not all of them will survive, but the more that they lay, the more of a chance there is that at least a few of them will survive. So that's kind of the system that the sea turtles will use in laying lots and lots of eggs, that even though not all of them will live, a few of them will. So those are the sea turtles. So as you can see, eggs are so cool, they're so diverse. We saw the super big ostrich eggs, we saw the little tiny hummingbird and the little tiny hummingbird nest, the ostrich eggs that got up to 3 pounds, the tiny hummingbird eggs that are about the size of a pea. They're different colors, they're different shapes. Some animals will lay lots of eggs, some will stay on them to keep them warm, some will bury them to keep them cool. So there's lots of different methods for nesting and for keeping eggs safe. So thanks you guys so much for joining me today to learn all about it. Hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy, and we'll see you later. Bye.